Hello, my dears. Welcome back to another Grimm fairy tale, and tonight we're taking a look at another all-time classic, Puss in Boots. A miller had 3 sons, his mill, a donkey, and a tomcat. The sons had to grind, the donkey had to get grain and carry flour away, and the cat had to catch the mice away. When the miller died, the 3 brothers divided their inheritance. The oldest received the mill, the second the donkey, and the third the tomcat. Further was nothing left for him. Thereon he was sad and spoke to himself. But I have gotten all the worse. My eldest brother can mill, my second can ride on his donkey. What can I start with the tomcat? Let me just make a pair of fur gloves out of his pelt and be done with it. Listen, said the tomcat, who understood everything he said. You do not need to kill me to get a pair of bad gloves made from my pelt. Let only a pair of boots be made from me, that I can go out and be seen among the people. Then you soon will be helped yourself. The miller's son was in wonderment that the tomcat so spoke, but because the shoemaker just walked by, he called him in and let a pair of boots be measured for him. When they were ready, the tomcat put them on, took a sack, made the bottom of the same full of corn, but put a string on top, which we could pull closed, and then he threw it over his back and went on 2 legs like a human out the door. In those days reigned a king in the land. He liked to eat partridges so much. There was a need, and there were none to be gotten. The whole forest was full, but they were so shy that no hunter could reach them. The tomcat knew that, and considered to do his master better. When he came into the forest, he made the sack open, spread the corn apart, put the cord he laid into the grass, and led it behind a ledge. There he hid himself, snuck around, and lurked. The partridges soon came running, and one after the other hopped into the sack. When a good quantity was in it, the tomcat pulled the cord close, and ran to and twisted their heads round, then threw the sack over his shoulder and went straight to the king's palace. The watch cried, "Halt! Where to?" "To the king," answered the tomcat quickly. "Are you crazed? A tomcat to the king?" "Just let him go," said another. "The king has often boredom. Maybe the tomcat will make him amused with his humming and spinning." When the tomcat came in front of the king, he made a reverence and said, "My Herr the Graf." With that he named the long and distinguished name. "Let himself be recommended to Herr King, and send him these partridges that he just caught in slings." King, astonished over the beautiful fat partridges, knew not out of pleasure how to contain himself, and commanded that the tomcat be given as much gold out of the treasure chamber into his sack as he could carry. "Bring that to your master, and thank him again many times for his gift." But the poor miller's son sat at home at the window, supported his head in his hand, and thought that he had spent his last for the tomcat's boots, and what large things will he be able to bring back? Thereon the tomcat stepped in, threw the sack from his back, untied it, and shook open the gold in front of the miller. "There, you have something for the boots. The king also greets you and says many thanks to you." The miller was glad over the wealth, but without rightly understanding how it came to be. The tomcat, as he took off his boots, told him everything. Then he said, "You do have enough money now, but it should not stay with that. Tomorrow I will put my boots on again, and you will become richer still. I also told the king that you are a Graf." On the next day the tomcat went, as he had said, well booted to hunting again, and brought the king a rich catch. So it went on for days, and the tomcat brought gold home day after day, and was so popular with the king that he was allowed to come in and go and prowl about the palace wherever he pleased. One time the tomcat stood in the king's kitchen by the stove and warmed himself. Thereon came the coachman and cursed, "I wish the king and princess that were at the executioner. I wanted to go to Worsthouse and drink and play cards." As the tomcat heard that, he snuck home and told his master, "If a Graf you want to be and become rich, so come outside with me to the lake and bathe yourself therein." The miller did not know what he should say to that, but followed the tomcat, went with him, undressed naked, and sprang into the water. But the tomcat took his clothes, carried them away, and hid them. No sooner was he finished with that, thereon came the king driving by. The tomcat immediately began pathetically to lament. "Oh, all merciful king, my master, he bathed himself here in the lake, and thereon a thief came and stole his clothes, that lay upon the shore. Now the master is in the water and cannot come out, and if he stays in too long he will catch cold and die." When the king heard that, he called halt, and one of his people had to chase back and bring the king's clothes. The master put on these magnificent clothes, so given to him because the king thought to be grateful for the partridges, although the master had no way of knowing this. So he went to sit with them in the carriage. The princess was also not upset over it, because the master was a young and handsome man, and she liked him quite well. But the tomcat went ahead into the large field, where over 100 people were making hay. "Who does this grass belong to, you people?" said the tomcat. "The great magician," they answered. "Listen, the king will soon drive by, and when he asks who the grass belongs to, answer, 'My master,' and if you do not do that, you will all be struck dead." Thereon the tomcat went further and came to a grain field, so large that no one could oversee it. There stood more than 200 people and cut the grain. "Who's this grain belong to, you people?" "The magician." "Listen, the king will drive by soon, and when he asks who the grain belongs to, you will answer, 'My master,' and if you do not do that, you will all be struck dead." Finally, the tomcat came to a magnificent forest. There stood more than 300 people who felled the big oaks and made wood. "Whose forest is this, you lot?" "The magician." "Listen, the king will drive by now, and when he does, and asks who the forest belongs to, you will answer, 'My master,' and if you do not do that, you will all be killed." The tomcat went still further, and the people all looked on in wonder because of how wonderful he looked in these boots, and how he walked as a human, and how afraid of him they were. He soon came to the magician's palace, stepped boldly in front of him, and the magician looked at him contemptuously and asked, "What is it you want?" The tomcat made a reverence and said, "I have heard that you could transform yourself into every animal that you choose of your own will. A hound, a fox, even a wolf? That I will well believe, but an elephant, that seems to me quite impossible, and therefore I have come to convince myself." The magician said proudly, "That is a trifle to me," and in the wink of an eye transformed into an elephant. "That is much, but also a lion?" asked the cat. "That is also nothing," said the magician, and stood as a lion in front of the tomcat. The tomcat made as if startled and cried, "That is unbelievable, unheard of. The same I never would have dreamt coming into my thoughts, but more still, all else it would be if you could transform into such a small animal as a mouse. You could certainly do more than any other magician in the world, but that would certainly be too much for you." The magician was very friendly from the sweet words and said, "Oh, dear cat, I can do that as well," and sprang as a mouse around the room. The tomcat was after him, caught the mouse with one jump, and ate him up. But the king was still driving with the master and the princess, and came to the large field. "Who does the hay belong to?" asked the king. "Why, that master!" cried all, as the tomcat had commanded them. "Thou have a pretty piece of land, Herr Graf," said he. Thereafter they came to the large grain field. "To whom does this grain belong, you people?" "The Herr Grafen." "Oi, Herr Graf, large, big estates." Thereon to the forest. "Who does the wood belong to, you people?" "The Herr Grafen." The king was astonished even more, and said, "Thou must be a rich man, Herr Graf. I do not believe that even I have such a magnificent forest." Finally, they came to the palace, and the tomcat stood on top of the stairs, and as the wagon stopped, he sprang down, opened the door, and said, "Herr King, thou comest to the palace of my master, the Graf, and this honors him and makes him happy, for all his days. The king stepped out and marveled at the magnificent building that was almost larger and more beautiful than that of his own palace. But the master led the princess up the stairs into the hall that was shimmering with gold and precious stones. Thereon the princess was promised to the master, and when the king died, he was king. But the booted tomcat became first minister. I've always thought that was such an adorable story. It's a bit of a rough translation, but I think it's really cute. And I hope you all enjoy. And I hope you have a lovely evening, get some good rest, and good night.